The series open with introduced Ted Lasso character was first as an NBC sports bit to get more American fans interested in the English Premier League, similar to how the NFL holds yearly games in England. It worked for me. To make it even better, the series was created by Jason Sudeikis and Brendan Hunt, both of whom appeared in the original skits nearly a decade ago. They play Ted Lasso and Coach Beard, respectively.
Bit of surprising news from the other side. Celebrating a moment of joy with his man, and good luck with the most beautiful game.
The series begins with an introduction to AFC Richmond owner Rebecca Welton. She inherited the team in a recent divorce from her husband, Rupert. Former manager George is brought in and then immediately fired by Rebecca.
Let me have it.
You're fired.
Yeah, right.
And I'll be buying out the remainder.
Much to the surprise of Higgins. Higgins asks if he should put together a list of potential candidates, but Rebecca says there is no need. She already has it figured out.
As far as new manager?
No.
The scene transitions to SportsCenter, where Scott Van Pelt announces that former Wichita State coach Ted Lasso has accepted the job and will become the first ever coach to switch from college football, non-Division I at that, to soccer, and not just any soccer, but the Premier League. Ted is then shown for the first time on a plane to London. A fan asks him for an Ussie, to which Ted responds, "You mean a selfie?" The fan replies, "Well, it's not really of myself, is it?" Ted considers this and says, "Huh, good point." They joke around, but ultimately the fan comments that Ted is going to get killed in the Premier League. Coach Beard is introduced as he studies soccer for dummies, trying to learn as much as possible on the flight. He learns that into touch means out of bounds and wagers Beard $5 that he can use it in a sentence later.
You owe me $5 if I sneak that into a sentence. Are we nuts for doing this?
When they arrive in London, they visit Tower Bridge and Ted jokes, "Must not have been London Bridge, because it's still standing." Nathan is introduced as he runs onto the pitch to stop them from walking on the grass. Ted and Coach Beard had wandered out while looking around the stadium. When Nathan realizes they are the new coaches, he quickly changes his tone and tells them they can take as much grass as they want. Right away, Ted takes a liking to Nathan, telling Coach Beard, "I love this kid."
Stop touching the grass!
I'm Ted Lasso. This is Coach.
Still, we got to get off the grass.
Oh, yeah.
It's Nathan.
Nathan! Oh, I love
Ted then sits down with Rebecca, who offers him tea, which he instantly regrets drinking and vows never to try again. Rebecca gives him a tour of the stadium, explaining that it was used as a hospital during World War II and that some people believe ghosts haunt the place. She asks Ted if he believes in ghosts, and he responds, "I think it's more important for ghosts to believe in themselves." Ted is then thrown into an impromptu press conference with the local media. He admits that he has never coached soccer and makes mistakes like saying he wants to try for all for quarters, only to be corrected that there are halves. When he says they will try to win or lose, he is corrected again. There is also a tie. The media begins to stir, and Trent Krim from The Independent, in his signature style, grills Ted with tough questions he cannot answer. Meanwhile, at a local pub, fans watching the press conference are furious. During the conference, Ted takes a sip of soda water, thinking it's regular water, and accidentally spits it out all over the front row. He's not off to a great start. Rebecca jumps in, apologizing for her country's manners, and tells the press that AFC Richmond has been the definition of mediocrity for years. She declares that from now on, things will be done the Lasso way. A reporter scoffs, "I'll give it 3 weeks." Ted asks to see the team. Rebecca replies, "Can't keep the gaffer from the pitch." Ted jokes, "Tell you what, I won't overdo it on that one." Meanwhile, Rebecca confesses to Higgins that she actually wants the team to fail in order to make Rupert suffer. She knows AFC Richmond is his true love and plans to ruin it. Higgins struggles with this but ultimately complies. Rebecca offers him a promotion to Director of Football Operations, securing his involvement. She reminds him that he never had a problem helping Rupert sneak around with women for years, guilt-tripping him into staying loyal. Ted and Coach Beard watch practice to evaluate the players. Back in the locker room, the team is visibly disrespectful and uninterested. Captain Roy Kent, a former Champions League winner and EPL legend, is particularly hostile. Ted later invites Roy into the office to talk, but Roy makes it clear he has no respect for him, saying, Didn't think my career would end with me being coached by Ronald McDonald. Ted had only been trying to compliment Roy's career.
Yeah.
It was real fun watching you out there. It doesn't surprise me, though. You've had a heck of a career.
Coached by Ronald fucking McDonald.
Be furious.
Keely is introduced in the locker room earlier when she arrives to pick up her boyfriend for a waxing appointment. She later returns, saying she forgot his phone. As she enters, Ted quickly covers up an inappropriate picture of her that was displayed on a screen. Keely notices and seems to appreciate his effort. They share an instant bond as she helps him fix a sign that reads "Believe," one of Ted's core mottos. Meanwhile, Higgins is visibly struggling with Rebecca's plan. Rebecca offers him a promotion, which he hesitantly accepts. Later, in the parking lot, Ted sits in the passenger seat of Nathan's car and pretends to drive, laughing about how the driver's seat is on the opposite side in America. The episode ends with Ted and Coach Beard walking to their new homes for the foreseeable future. At least, they hope so. Beard pays Ted the $5 bet because Ted successfully used Into Touch during the press conference, albeit incorrectly. Ted is then shown alone in his house, looking uncharacteristically somber. For the first time, he isn't smiling. He counts the hours, trying to figure out if it's a reasonable time to call his family. He finally dials, and his young son answers. They talk for a bit before Ted's wife gets on the phone. The conversation makes it clear they are on the outs. She wanted space, and though Ted is giving it to her, she says, "Not like this. You can't be calling me all the time." And with that, the episode ends.
Down on that side.
Oh,
Well,
what's this for? No, that's okay. Yeah.
After episode 1 ended with Ted waking up, likely having had a rough night of sleep, he goes downstairs, pours himself some cereal, and realizes that England has a different type of shredded wheat. He meets Coach Beard outside. Coach Beard asks if he's hungry, and Ted replies, "No, I'm good. I had one piece of cereal." Ted and Coach Beard then go to get coffee. They get excited, saying it feels like the first day of school as they head to the stadium, enjoying the local scenery and watching kids play soccer in the park. Biscuits with the Boss is introduced for the first time as Ted tries to bond with Rebecca. He brings her a cookie, and she immediately becomes obsessed with it. The coaches officially hold their first practice. During practice, they notice that Jamie Tart is very talented but also disrespectful to his teammates and flashy. He embarrasses Sam Abasanya, making him fall. Ted pulls Sam aside and gives him some of his signature wisdom. "Be like a goldfish." He explains that goldfish have a 10-second memory and wants Sam to forget about mistakes quickly and move on. However, Sam doesn't seem to fully understand the message. Ted then asks Nate for more information about Sam. He learns that Sam has been homesick for Nigeria and has been underperforming since joining AFC Richmond. Back in the locker room, Ted introduces a suggestion box where players can write down any changes they'd like to see, whether serious issues or simple snack requests. However, this backfires when Ted and Coach Beard later check the box while at a bar. Most of the suggestions are just insults, with repeated messages like "yank wanker." However, one legitimate suggestion stands out. The shower pressure in the locker room is terrible.
Just go ahead and drop us a note.
We're middle of the table. We've lost 3 of...
you don't want to let them call you a wanker, Ted.
Boy, that is bad.
At the stadium, Keely asks Ted which is better, a lion or a panda, because she has an upcoming modeling shoot based on the theme. Ted chooses panda. Rebecca, overhearing, takes it personally and says, "Of course you go lion," before walking off. When Roy Kent is asked the same question, he says, "I'm me. Why would I want to be anything different?" Ted responds, "I don't think you quite understand how psychologically healthy that is." The next morning, Biscuits with the Boss, Part 2, takes place. Rebecca still isn't thrilled about the tradition, but she's definitely happy to receive the biscuits. Meanwhile, Higgins is starting to grow fond of Ted, despite Rebecca's best efforts to keep him from bonding with anyone, especially Higgins, the only one who knows about her plan. Back in the locker room, Ted tricks the team into thinking the boss wants to see Sam. The players start placing bets on why Sam is being called in, with Jamie tossing his gum in instead of money. This doesn't sit well with Ted, as he's trying to build team unity, but Jamie clearly has no respect for the team, coaches, or anyone but himself. The second press conference goes significantly better than the first. Ted remembers some of the reporters' names, but Trent Crimm challenges him, asking if he can explain offsides. Ted struggles and ultimately gives a quippy answer. You can't really explain it, but you know it when you see it. It's clear he's still in over his head, but he believes in his coaching instincts. Meanwhile, Rebecca learns from a reporter at The Sun that Rupert had been cheating on her for much longer than she initially thought. Ted wants to find a way to get through to Jamie, so he asks Rebecca for advice. Knowing she wants to sabotage Ted, she suggests talking to Keely. This sparks an idea in Rebecca's mind. Ted visits Keely at her photo shoot. He jokingly says he's disappointed she went with the lion but compliments her on looking great. As they have lunch, Ted tries to understand what motivates Jamie. Keely first jokingly says, BJ's, but then admits that Jamie responds best to positive reinforcement. Meanwhile, Keely, still in full makeup, makes a mess while eating, so Ted helps wipe her face. At that moment, a photographer secretly takes a picture, capturing them in what looks like an intimate moment. Exactly what Rebecca had planned.
I'm afraid that's all we have time for.
Actually, you know, the whole reason I'm here is because what would you say motivates him?
Nothing.
Just be careful. Hold on.
No, that's a lot of it.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I'm just...
Later, it's time for Ted's first game as AFC Richmond's coach, against Crystal Palace. Interestingly, many of the show's stadium shots were filmed at Crystal Palace's home ground, which explains the similarities in the jerseys. The team surprises Sam with a birthday celebration, complete with a cake and gifts from Nigeria, making him feel more at home. Jamie, however, doesn't like the bonding happening within the team. At the stadium, the entire Nelson Road crowd is chanting "wanker" at Ted. Nobody respects him. Not the fans, not the media, not even his own team. Ted turns to Coach Beard and says, well, we got 90 minutes to win them back. Unfortunately, AFC Richmond loses 4-1. Roy Kent is furious and storms off into the showers. However, during the game, commentator Arlo White notes that Sam played very well, suggesting that he's starting to find his footing. The one goal Richmond did score was by Jamie Tart, but it was meaningless since they were already getting crushed. Still, Jamie celebrated as if he'd won the World Cup. After the match, Ted calls Jamie into his office. He praises his talent but tells him that he needs to work on being a teammate, to turn the me into us. He tells Jamie that if he can do that, the sky will be the limit for his potential. Meanwhile, Roy notices that the locker room showers have better water pressure. It's a small but significant moment, as it's the first time he seems slightly pleased with Ted. The team continues celebrating Sam's birthday with music and dancing, despite the loss. Ted encourages it because he believes that team bonding is more important than a single loss. Outside the locker room, Trent Crimm is waiting. Jamie is the first to leave as usual. When asked about the loss, Jamie initially tries to repeat Ted's words about being part of a team, but then he gets frustrated. He tells Trent about the locker room celebrations, calling it a complete joke, but he leaves out the part about it being Sam's birthday. That night, Ted and Coach Beard walk home. Ted stops to chat with the young girl he had previously seen playing soccer in the park. She tells him bluntly, "You were rubbish today." Ted respects her opinion because he saw her impressive skills earlier. She even nutmegged an opponent. They start kicking the ball around together. Meanwhile, Rebecca speaks to Higgins about the cameraman she hired to take the photo of Ted and Keely. Higgins questions whether she really wants to go through with posting the story. At that moment, Rebecca sees a news report about Rupert's new girlfriend, realizing just how long he had been cheating on her. Fueled by anger and her desire to destroy Rupert's true love, AFC Richmond, she decides to leak the pictures.
The gaffer's fixed the water.
Jamie. Trent Crimm, The Independent.
You were rubbish.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Do it.
The next episode begins with Rebecca waking up before her alarm, looking extremely excited for the day. She rushes into work, sits in her office, and eagerly opens the newspaper, only to find nothing. The story about Ted and Keely is nowhere to be found. Her plan has not made the news yet. Immediately, she calls Higgins, who is having breakfast with his family, and orders him to come in. Biscuits with the boss. Part 3 begins, but Rebecca cuts it short, trying to get Ted out the door as quickly as possible. She is busy fabricating a false news story about him and doesn't want him around to catch on. Meanwhile, Coach Beard and Ted analyze the team's performance from last week. They both agree it's time to start fresh with a game plan that doesn't rely on giving the ball to Jamie and hoping he scores. Just then, Nate walks in with a suggestion. He never expected them to ask for his opinion, but he's ready. Pulling several plays from his pocket, he nervously presents them. Ted and Beard like one in particular, which involves using Jamie as a decoy, and they agree to test it on the pitch. Keely soon finds out about the leaked photo and rushes to tell Ted. She explains they are being framed to make it look like they are together. Her friend at the Sun has given her 1 day to deal with it before the story runs. The two immediately confront Rebecca, informing her that the Sun will publish it tomorrow. Rebecca feigns shock and reassures them, saying, "Don't worry, I know the owner of the Sun. I'll have it taken down." Once they leave, Rebecca grows anxious, realizing they could trace the photo leak back to her. On the practice field, Nate's play is tested and works beautifully. Jamie looks furious as the ball no longer goes through him. He is being used as a decoy. However, since the play is successful, the team decides to adopt it.
You got something, Nate?
No. Okay, right. It's just, thought if we started the attack on the wing, Jamie could run.
Sam wide open. There it is.
In the locker room, some of the players, particularly Colin and Isaac, start picking on Nate. Roy looks visibly irritated by their behavior. Ted has given each player a hand-selected book to read. While most take theirs home, Jamie tosses his into the trash and then joins in teasing Nate. Roy, angered by the situation, storms into the coach's room to tell Ted. Ted acknowledges the issue but insists that stepping in as a coach would only make things worse for Nate. Roy, frustrated, asks, "So you're not going to do anything about it?" Ted responds, "Nope." As Roy walks out, Ted turns to Coach Beard and says, "Roy is the one we need to earn the trust of." Roy then confronts Jamie, demanding he stop picking on Nate so that the others will follow suit. Since Jamie is the most talented and admired player on the team, Roy hopes he will set a better example. Jamie, however, does the opposite. He walks up to Colin and Isaac and tells them, "Keep doing what you're doing. It makes me laugh." Later,
Gifts up in y'all's lot.
Fuck.
He's the one, coach.
Yeah, all right. I'll take care of it, Nate.
Keep it up. Makes me laugh.
Rebecca tells Ted that she spoke to the owner of the Sun. Ted jokingly replies, "God." She clarifies, "No, the newspaper," and claims they won't run the story in exchange for an exclusive interview with The Independent. Trent Krim joins Ted on the sidelines to watch practice. Sam continues to improve, but Jamie complains about the new play. However, Roy unexpectedly sides with Ted, affirming that the strategy will work. Ted then reveals to Trent that the play was actually Nate's idea. Back in the locker room, Colin and Isaac continue to mess with Nate. Roy checks in with them, asking if Jamie told them to stop. When they confirm he didn't, Roy storms out in search of Jamie but instead finds Keely. The two immediately hit it off, showing mutual admiration. Later, Trent questions Ted about celebrating Sam's birthday right after their loss to Crystal Palace. Ted explains that he doesn't focus solely on wins and losses. Trent doesn't fully understand at the time but will later come to appreciate this mindset. Ted then invites Trent to an event where he is scheduled to speak to schoolchildren who recently won a championship. Meanwhile, Keely visits Rebecca. They discuss the leaked report, and Keely notices how upset Rebecca is about Rupert getting away with his wrongdoing, while she is constantly scrutinized in the media for how she runs AFC Richmond. Their conversation marks the beginning of a genuine friendship.
To not run the photo of...
MVP!
Like you've forgotten something.
I just wanted to come and thank you again for stopping.
I didn't know you were.
At the school, Ted is immediately called a wanker by the children. Laughing it off, he congratulates them on their championship season and surprises them by bringing Roy Kent. The kids go wild. Instead of giving a speech, Roy suggests they go outside and play football instead. Roy later tells Ted, "The only reason I'm here is because my niece goes to this school." As they play, Roy's niece accidentally kicks the ball into Ted's face, and everyone bursts into laughter. Roy then tells Ted, "I'm done with your mind games. I'm counting down the days until you're gone." That evening, Trent and Ted go for Indian food, recommended by an Uber driver who had previously picked Ted up from the airport. Ted orders the special, which turns out to be incredibly spicy. Trent struggles with the heat and refuses to eat it, while Ted, though clearly suffering, insists on finishing his meal. Trent asks Ted why he left Kansas to coach soccer, calling the decision irresponsible and emphasizing how much AFC Richmond means to the town. Ted pauses and then asks Trent, "What do you love?" Trent replies, "Writing." Ted smiles and responds, "I love coaching, and when I said I don't care about wins and losses, I meant that I care more about helping each player become the best version of themselves, on and off the field. It's important to have someone believe in you." Trent is visibly impressed. As he leaves, Ted, despite being in obvious pain, stays behind to eat more of the spicy food. Later, Roy is shown reading A Wrinkle in Time, the book Ted had given him, to his niece. As he slams it shut, he seems to understand why Ted chose that specific book for him. The next day, Trent Crimm's article is published. He writes that while Ted is clearly out of his depth and knows little about soccer, if the Lasso way is wrong, it's hard to imagine being right. In a sport dominated by egos, Ted stands out by reining his in. Roy, after reading A Wrinkle in Time, confronts Jamie about his influence over the team and how he's been allowing his goons to bully Nate. Ted's plan to get Roy to step up as a leader is starting to work. The episode ends with Trent Crimm admitting, "I can't help but root for Ted Lasso." Meanwhile, Rebecca looks furious. Her plan has once again backfired, at least for now.
That's for all of you.
Allowing followers to become leaders because I can't help but root for him.
The next episode opens with the team down 2-0 at halftime. Roy is not taking it well, screaming at the team that they can play better. Meanwhile, Jamie is in the corner insulting Sam, saying he didn't pass to him because the only reason he would is if his dad were Maradona. Then maybe he'd consider it. Roy overhears this and starts a fight with Jamie in the locker room. The team splits, with some players siding with Jamie and others with Roy. At practice, Ted Lasso and Coach Beard can see the team is still divided. Half of the players are gathered around Jamie, while the other half are with Roy. Realizing the issue, Ted looks for a way to bring the team back together.
Sorry, I didn't put that cross where you wanted it.
Move forward if I gave you some advice that might...
Oi, I'm done with you being a prick to everyone.
Tonight, it's I the chick.
Meanwhile, Rebecca is planning the annual gala, an event to raise money for children. Last year, they raised £800,000, and she's determined to break that record. However, this is the first time she's organizing it alone without Rupert's help. Though she claims she did most of the planning in previous years, Rupert's presence helped because of his popularity. Ted walks in to talk, but she's too overwhelmed to entertain him. When Ted asks if he can sit at the same table as Roy and Jamie, she quickly agrees just to get rid of him.
I'm wondering if me, Roy, and Jamie could all sit at... Is that possible?
Yes.
Great!
Later, as Ted walks down the street, Nate is waiting for him to go to the event together. Nate asks how he looks, and Ted, being honest, tells him the suit doesn't fit. Nate admits it's his father's suit, as he doesn't have anything else. Ted takes Nate to buy him a new suit. As the players arrive on the red carpet, most walk through without a fuss, but Jamie relishes the attention, showing his selfish and unaware nature. In contrast, Roy storms past the photographers, telling them to off. Once inside, he sees his assigned table and refuses to sit there. Ted insists, saying he parent-trapped Roy and Jamie so they could talk about their issues for the sake of the team. At first, the conversation doesn't go well, so Ted suggests a drink. Everyone at the table raises their hand. Rebecca is nervous about public speaking, and Ted advises her to make fun of herself, as people tend to respond well to self-deprecation. She follows his advice, but just as she starts to settle in, Rupert arrives and steals the spotlight. Later, Ted asks Roy what he was like at Jamie's age. Roy admits that he was just as self-obsessed and cocky, realizing he sees a younger version of himself in Jamie. Nate then approaches Roy, thanking him for talking to Colin and Isaac about not messing with him anymore. This moment starts to soften Roy's heart. Rebecca asks Rupert to handle the auction. Initially, he declines, but then he gladly accepts, enjoying the attention. He then delivers a backhanded compliment about Rebecca's dress, saying, "I didn't know you could still fit into that. Good for you." During the auction, Keely outbids an older woman and another attractive woman for a date with Jamie. She becomes especially competitive when a younger woman keeps raising the stakes, ultimately paying £25,000 for a date with her own boyfriend. Later, Rebecca tells Keely that Bex, the other woman bidding on Jamie, was actually his second date for the evening. Furious, Keely confronts Jamie, who admits that he wanted to make her jealous. Meanwhile, Roy also goes up for auction, and Keely bids for him along with the older woman. She keeps bidding, but ultimately, she puts her paddle down, flips off Jamie, and storms out.
£1,000.
2,000.
£3,000.
4,000 pounds. 6,000 pounds.
At the end of the night, Rupert announces that he's donating £1 million, ensuring they surpass Rebecca's goal. However, his donation is more about one-upping her than genuine generosity. He smugly says, "It's for the children," further mocking her. This moment makes it clear why Rebecca wants the team to fail, because it's what Rupert truly loves. Ted and Higgins arrive with a street musician Ted met earlier, named Cam. Ted believes in Cam's talent and wants to give him a chance. Since Rupert was likely the reason Robbie Williams cancelled, Ted doesn't want Rupert to have the satisfaction of fixing it. Cam ends up being an incredible performer, rocking the event while everyone, except Jamie, dances. As the night winds down, Ted reassures Rebecca that not everyone sees Rupert for who he truly is, but Ted does. Meanwhile, Keely apologizes to Roy for dragging him into her fights with Jamie. After this, she officially breaks up with Jamie, grabs 2 bottles of alcohol and leaves the party. Outside, she runs into Rebecca, who is standing alone. Keely asks if she wants to get drunk. Rebecca agrees, and the two hop onto one of the carriages Ted offered earlier, riding around the city, bonding over drinks. This marks the beginning of their new friendship.
Do you want to go get, like, really drunk?
Yes, I do.
Episode 5 opens with Higgins arriving at the field with his entire family because one of their cars isn't working. As Ted walks by, he greets the family but slams his head on the door because he keeps checking his phone for flight updates.
Morning, Ted. Hey, Higgins!
His wife and son are arriving today. Rebecca talks to Ted about it, and he explains that his constant optimism and openness were too much for his wife, and she needed space, which is how he ended up in England. Meanwhile, Keely shows up at Jamie's house only to find he already has a new woman over. She silently drops his keys and leaves. At training, Jamie once again refuses to pass to Sam and instead takes a shot on goal, which would have gone in, but Ted catches it midair, reminding Jamie that he needs to learn how to pass. Frustrated that they keep going over this issue, Ted tells the team they need to focus on extra passes. But just as he says that, he suddenly cancels practice. His wife and son have arrived. Ted sprints the entire length of the pitch to greet them. Rebecca later walks in on Keely working on a branding deal for Jamie and questions it, saying, "I thought you two broke up." Keely responds that just because they broke up doesn't mean she can't run his marketing campaign. Impressed by Keely's skills, Rebecca offers her a job in brand marketing. Keely says she'll think about it and get back to her. Ted takes his family to the local bar he often visits, even though most of the patrons there call him a wanker. His son plays darts but accidentally hits a man in the arm, so they quickly leave. Meanwhile, Roy and Keely have a conversation about Jamie, and Keely reveals that they broke up. Later, at home, Ted and his son build a Lego double-decker tour bus together. His wife joins in to help, and for a moment, they all seem happy. However, Ted notices his wife is crying. She admits that she doesn't feel the same way anymore but insists she'll keep trying. Ted tells her that if he had stayed in Kansas, anything he did would have backfired. So instead, He gave her 4,438 miles of space. The next game arrives, and Ted's family is in attendance. Richmond concedes 2 goals within the first 2 minutes. Before the match, Jamie had been in the locker room taking selfies, which led to a confrontation with Ted. However, when Ted's son walks in, Jamie declares that his next goal won't just be for himself but also for his son. Shortly after, Jamie scores an incredible solo goal and celebrates wildly, pointing to the name on the back of his shirt. Meanwhile, Sam is injured, and instead of showing concern, Jamie steps over him. Roy is furious, demanding that Jamie show respect to his teammate. Roy literally turns Sam over, which enrages Jamie, leading to a scuffle. The two get into a fight, and Jamie ends up receiving a yellow card for arguing with his own teammate. Despite the tension, Jamie scores again, tying the game, and celebrates just as egotistically as before. Ted then makes a bold move. He runs up to Rebecca in the owner's box and asks if he can sub Jamie out. Rebecca tells him, "You're the manager. Do whatever you want." No one in the stadium likes the decision, and Jamie refuses to shake Ted's hand as he leaves the pitch.
What do you say in my shirt?
Excuse me, mate.
Check on your fucking teammate.
He's a special player on play out there when he gets back in. Shut up.
However, Roy steps up, demanding that everyone listen to Ted. Ted gives a speech acknowledging that the team is broken and needs to change. This is the first time the players truly take his message to heart. He mixes his speech with reflections on his divorce but quickly refocuses, moving Sam to midfield and instructing the team to listen to Coach Beard's strategy for the rest of the game. Late in the match, Roy Kent finds himself on a breakaway with an easy shot on goal. However, instead of taking it, he makes an extra pass to Sam, following Ted's coaching advice, and Sam scores an easy tap-in. Richmond wins their first game under Ted Lasso.
Richmond take the lead with
After the match, Roy compliments Ted's coaching decision. The home crowd, who previously chanted "wanker" at him in disrespect, now chants it as a term of approval. Ted lifts his son to wave to the crowd, but Rebecca watches nervously, realizing her plan to sabotage the team may be failing. Later, Ted says goodbye to his wife, fully aware that their marriage is over. He tells her that if there were anything he could do to make her happy, he would, but he can't. He reassures her that it's okay and that he will be okay, even as he fights back tears. Ted then says goodbye to his son, holding back his emotions. Finally, Ted sits on a bench, overwhelmed, when Coach Beard silently brings him a beer. A local fan, who had previously insulted Ted, walks by and compliments him. Ted takes a sip of his beer, reflecting on everything that has just happened. And so, Season 1 Part 1 of Ted Lasso comes to an end. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more updates. See you in the next video.